My 49 female daughter, Katie, nearly adult, was graduating high school this spring and was just accepted to her first college last week. I share Katie with her father, my ex-husband, Will, 52, but I've been married to my husband, Brian, 49, for about 6 years. Brian has a son, Nick, teen, a junior at the same school as Katie. Brian has full custody of Nick, while I share custody of Katie. Will and I divorced fairly amicably when Katie was young and have grown into strong co-parents. Will's family comes from substantial money, so as part of the divorce, we agreed that he would be responsible for the tuition and dorm bill for Katie's college, and I would pay for the other miscellaneous living expenses. I've saved enough to pay for these expenses, but I know that if something were to happen to my savings, Will or his family would be able to foot the entire bill for Katie's living expenses without any changes to his lifestyle. Will and I decided to sit Katie down and show her the whole picture of what college cost and what we will pay for. Brian thought it would be a good idea to have a similar conversation with Nick, even though he's only a junior. Unfortunately, the financial situation for Nick differs. Since his mom is not in the picture, it has been on Brian to save for Nick's college. Brian was able to save, and I've also contributed a bit. He has about enough saved for a full associate's degree or half of a bachelor's degree at an in-state public school without living expenses. We didn't openly discuss the specifics of the different finances with each child, but broadly said they had different opportunities due to situations outside of their control. Nick has since surmised that his situation is very different from Katie's, and his choices will be more impacted by finances than hers. Nick came to Brian and me very upset over the weekend. He said that it wasn't fair that Katie got to go anywhere she wanted, and he was specifically upset that Katie wouldn't have to pay for her own room and board. He then asked that if Katie gets into a school with scholarships, he could get the difference in tuition for his college. Or he said that I should contribute the savings I had for Katie to his fund to try to make it fairer, since Will could make up the difference easily. I kindly told him that no, I wouldn't do that, and that I was really sorry about the situation. Then I told him that unfortunately, sometimes them's the breaks in life, and that we'll do our best to make sure that whatever college he decides to go to, that he can make the most of the opportunity, even with loans. Nick was obviously upset at this, and Brian thinks my response to his asking made me a bit of an idiot, even though I shouldn't have to change any of the agreement. I feel like I'm going crazy, but am I the idiot? Wow, did you literally say them's the breaks? Because I can see how he's taking that as an idiot thing to say. While it's true that not everyone gets equal opportunities and starts with the same assets in life, saying them's the breaks is a dismissive, uncaring way to say it. The message isn't wrong, but the delivery was so bad it obscured the message, so you are the idiot. The story's tone also feels like OP doesn't care about her stepson at all, even since she's been in his life since he was 10. She just told him to go get loans. It would be a pretty big slap in the kid's face. The world is cold enough. Kids don't need the same attitude from their parents. Is her ex supposed to pay for her stepchild's tuition? That would be ridiculous. I don't get that at all. OP has contributed to her stepson's college fund, though we are still determining how much that is better than most who come here. Then her stepson wants to take what OP contributed to her daughter's fund. The kid needs a metaphorical slap in the face to jolt him out of entitlement mode. Life isn't fair, and just because someone can pay for someone else doesn't mean they have to pay. Short story, when I was in high school, Mom saw me reading the 500 Best Universities, or whatever, book that came out each year in the 90s. She sat me down and told me, point blank, that neither she nor my dad would be paying for college. I came from a poor blue-collar family. I won't go into the rest, but that conversation needed to happen. I wouldn't be where I am right now without that reality check. Nick needed that now, at about the same age I was. You laid out what you can and can't pay for. Katie's situation is really none of his business. Hopefully, it will spur him on to get his grades and ACT, SAT scores up, to get a scholarship and more choices. Them's the breaks is not an idiot statement. Direct and blunt, but not an idiot statement. My father, 63, left my mom, 62, when I, 37, was 10 years old. He was having a baby with his girlfriend / now wife, 50. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and didn't finish college. She had gotten pregnant with my older brother, 42. My father was an idiot, making the divorce as crappy as possible for my mom. We ended up moving in with my paternal grandparents. He was their only child, and they were disappointed in him. They helped my mom to go back to school. Once she finished school, she wanted to pay them back, but they wouldn't let her. They also basically disowned my father. He was invited over for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but that was about it. They did love their other grandchildren, though. They always provided gifts and contributed to their education. My grandmother passed away a few years ago from breast cancer, and my grandfather passed away last year, and he left everything to my brother and me. It wasn't a huge estate, and it's not life-changing money. Both my brother and I are well established in our careers. They left my father $500. The lawyer explained that it was a way of preventing him from being able to challenge the will. They also left each of my half-siblings $10,000. My brother and I each got over $100,000. My grandfather said that since my brother and I had grown up without a father, by his choice, but his other children had, then he felt that this was fair. He also left my mom his house and some money. She had been taking care of them for a long time, and they never stopped thinking of her as a daughter. My father approached my brother and me recently, saying that his other kids are struggling with finances and that we should split everything with them since we don't need the money. He also tried to get my mom to renounce her inheritance. She laughed in his face and asked for all the child support he owed. I get that it's not my half-siblings' fault, but they had a dad to take care of them growing up, and we didn't. So neither my brother nor I agreed to share. Now my father, his wife, and all my half-siblings are calling us idiots for being so greedy and not helping them through the hard times they're going through. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You know that your deadbeat father isn't going to leave you and your brother anything when he dies. Your grandmother and grandfather loved you and wanted to help you guys, and I'm glad your mom had their support. They sound like wonderful people. This. OP, I would block all of those awful people. Or if you have a relationship with your half-siblings, text them in a group chat. We are no longer going to discuss our inheritance. You need to drop this topic. You won't get us to change our minds, but it will forever ruin our relationship. If they keep at it, then block them on everything. You don't owe your half-siblings anything. Your grandparents are trying to do right by you after failing to raise a son that would. A 36-year-old idiot had an affair with a 23-year-old, who I'm sure he knew was married, and knocked her up. He made your family's life miserable, didn't pay child support, and was such an idiot that his parents basically disowned him. Now he and his entitled wife are throwing a fit because you won't give money to their kids, who you barely know. Yeah, again, not the idiot. Not your circus, not your monkeys. Your grandparents were good people, and Granddad knew what he was doing. You owe Bio Dad and his new family nothing. I have a toddler and a preschooler, so keeping them on a good sleep schedule is pretty important. Whenever my husband is away, he'll FaceTime with the kids for a little while. We agreed before he left that he would call at 6:30 p.m. my time, as their bedtime is around 8 p.m. He called late from the start, but he was always apologetic and said his meeting ran over, so I let it go at first. After the fourth time, I told him I wouldn't answer if he called later than 7:30 p.m., as it was ruining their sleep schedule, and he began calling later and later every day. I never answered when he called to speak to the kids for 3 days because he called after 7:30 p.m., and now he's angry at me, even though I suggested he called earlier if that worked better for him, as it didn't. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. He has no respect for how hard it is to get little kids to sleep and for how exhausting it is every single night. You're home alone with 2 little kids on your own for a week? For your sanity, you need their bedtime to go smoothly. So can you call him at 6:30 and have the kids leave him a message? And have him call to leave them a message so they can listen in the morning? Disagree. For all the parents of small children who can't adjust the routine by 15 minutes, or end the night with an I love you from a parent. Trust me, you need to switch something up. Life happens. You can't do your routine and the next day will be hosed. Teach the kids flexibility. Not going to bed 3 hours later, but 15 minutes. Put PJs on before dinner. Yes, you are the idiot. There needs to be more context. If he's in a different time zone, it could genuinely be difficult to get out of meetings suitably to call earlier. Obviously, if they're asleep, I'm not going to wake them up, but I can only imagine how upset my wife would be if I told her she couldn't speak to the kids while still awake when she has to work late. Life just doesn't follow rules. You have to work and be flexible to see what will work. You can be rigid if you want, but the only result will be an angry husband, angry you, and kids that don't speak to their dad when away. I don't see a winner in that situation. And yes, I have 3 young kids. Both of us work full-time and life is super busy. My 25 male, wife 23, and I have had a tradition every Christmas where we would bake Christmas cookies and frost them without friends. We'd then give the cookies to the friends, families, and helpers. Every year, my wife would take on the bulk of the baking duties, insisting that only she knew how to bake them right, and only letting whoever's helping frost them. She always insisted on doing all the baking because the frosting was the fun part and the only thing people wanted to do. Usually this frosting and baking marathon would last until the wee hours of the morning and start around noon. Well, this year, for reasons that aren't relevant to this post today, she wouldn't be available on the day we normally do all of this. She was sad that we wouldn't be able to do our cookie tradition. I said that I was more than capable of baking the cookies. She seemed to think I was joking and could never do it myself. Well, I said I'd try, and she wished me a sarcastic good luck. Well, in the run-up to the days of baking and frosting, I started running drills to optimize production, enter testing and tragic mistake montage. I started rearranging the house in various configurations, running tests on the dough we were using to see how long it would take to bake, and making appropriate changes while running it by taste testers, substituting ingredients for quicker bake time while preserving taste, making the cookies as thin as possible without compromising frosting ratio, canvas space for creativity, and/or comprising structural integrity, etc. Come the day of baking, I have everything down to a science. As friends and family come in, I give them the rundown. After a couple of hours, most kinks are worked out, and cookies are flowing out at a breakneck pace. Eventually, we start running out of material, something that never happened under my wife's aegis. We start running to the store for the necessary raw materials to fuel our mighty cookie forges. By the time we were exhausted around 2 a.m., we had produced at least 5 times the amount of cookies we had ever had before. Well, my wife gets home a couple of days later and is weirdly upset. She insisted the cookies tasted weird, that we spent too much money, and that I was actively trying to make her look bad by making so much more than her. In truth, I ran blind tests to see if anyone could differentiate between the old recipe and mine, and no one could. I also only spent 40% more than years previous as I slotted in some cheaper ingredients and bought some stuff in bulk. And I had absolutely zero intention of upstaging her. I simply had the goal of maximizing cookie production. She says that even if I didn't do it on purpose, I should have thought about how it made her look to run circles around her and embarrass her. And she actually called me an idiot. She's never called me an idiot in all 3 years of marriage, so I can't help but think that I am. Am I the idiot? Edit. I'm also working on getting a degree in electrical engineering. I have pretty intense ADHD, and I cook pretty often. Never really baked, though. You are the idiot. So why did you deliberately try to make way more cookies than your wife and run blind taste tests to prove your point? Because if you just tried to help and did a good job and she was annoyed, I'd blame her. But you're bragging in this story about how you did a much better job with science and rigor, and there's no obvious explanation for why you were trying to outshine her. If this was her thing, and your goal was to prove you could do it better, then you do come across as the idiot. I noticed she said they tasted bad, you spent too much, you deliberately tried to make her look bad, and you only defended the first 2 points. I love how everyone just piles on this guy and completely ignores the belittling, abusive comments by his wife. before the event even happened. If a man said those things to his wife about something, everyone would be in here calling for divorce and therapy. But instead, everyone's jumping on the way to ruin a tradition for her bandwagon. OP, not the idiot. Someone talks down to you as if you're incapable and lesser than. Damn right you should prove them wrong by doing much more than. She also told him he's unable to make cookies and was bullying him for even thinking he could bake. Sounds like horrible stereotypes. And when he outdid her, she felt threatened because her thought process was, how dare a man bake better than me? But why are you guys turning something that sounds cool and fun, baking cookies, into something out of Gordon Ramsay? Because he's an engineer who has ADHD. All of the challenges of optimizing the Christmas cookies are just a picture of how his brain works. OP might not do things the way other people would, but that doesn't make him an idiot. Personally, I wouldn't want to be in that kitchen, but to each his own. My husband and I have been married for 10 years. We have a tween daughter together, Maya. I also have a teen daughter from a previous relationship, Nova, and he has a teen son from a previous relationship, Oliver. This is about Oliver and Nova. About a month ago, Nova broke Oliver's iPad. She claimed it was an accident, but Oliver believes she did it out of jealousy. The iPad can't be fixed, so we have to buy him a new one. I told Nova she has to buy one for him, and since she doesn't have any money, we're going to do this. She's going to ask for half of the iPad's money from her dad for Christmas. I'll also give her the other half. Then she can buy an iPad for Oliver. She wasn't happy about it and threw a tantrum about not getting any Christmas gifts for herself this year. I told her that actions have consequences. This is her consequence. Yesterday, I found out that not only does her dad not have any intention of giving her money for Oliver's iPad, but he's also buying a new iPad for Christmas for Nova. Apparently, it was her idea because she just wants to have an iPad. I asked her, what about Oliver? And she just shrugged. I told her in this case, you're grounded for Christmas. This year, she's supposed to be with me for Christmas, and it's court ordered, so her dad can't do anything about it. I told her that she wouldn't celebrate with us. She'll get her iPad, but she'll stay in her room. Her dad is calling me an idiot and saying that I'm cruel for doing this punishment. I think she needs this lesson. Where do you shop for audacity? That's a lot of fortitude to try to dictate how your ex is the only grown-up required to contribute financially to replace something he had nothing to do with for a child that isn't his. You allow a behavioral situation to happen in your home and then take no responsibility for it. And I still need to find out how you know your stepson's not lying, but your daughter is. You're the supersized idiot. Also, if you were on Oliver's side here, which it sounds like you are, and there's a possibility Nova broke his iPad out of jealousy, why do you think forcing her to spend the holiday alone will change her behavior? You need to address that jealousy issue. Wow, OP, you're ruthless. This is cruel. There's no lesson to be learned here. This will only teach her to resent you. She's never going to forget this. Good luck with your relationship with her in the future. My husband's mom moved in with us a week ago. The minute we were informed she was going to move in, temporarily till her house gets renovated, we emptied a room specifically for her. It has everything: a bed with a frame, curtains, mounted TV, wardrobe, etc. She was thrilled with it and loved it. One day I came home and found her in my bedroom, sleeping in my and my husband's bed. I was confused, but she told me she had taken a nap on the bed and lost track of time. Since then, she started talking about how she loved the nap there and started hinting at wanting to take naps in our bedroom from now on. I kept ignoring her comments till my husband set me down and told me that his mom really liked and got used to napping in our bedroom and we should just let her have her daily afternoon nap in the room. I said absolutely not, and we started debating. Finally, I told him his mom was ridiculous because she had a whole room upstairs where she should nap. He got upset and said that I was making his mom feel uncomfortable and unwelcome with this attitude. I said no and refused to negotiate. He called me selfish and mean for saying no and preventing his mom from feeling comfortable at his house. But I reminded him that I pay the full mortgage for the house while he blows money over gadgets and consoles. He accused me of bringing old disagreements in this current conflict against him. I said no again, and he should stop pushing because I need the room and I get home feeling exhausted from working on my feet from 6 a.m. He's refusing to speak to me till I agree and let his mom have her nap in there. Am I the idiot for choosing this hill to die on? As he says, am I being difficult? Not the idiot. Die on this hill. I would hate if someone napped in my bed. My bedroom is my sanctuary. Get a lock for your bedroom door if you must, but this is ridiculous. And tell your husband to grow up. Your problem is not with the mother-in-law. I think you already know that it's with your husband. He needs to support you in your dealings with his family, but instead of doing that, he's making the situation worse. You're already hosting his mother. She's lucky enough to have her room when most people don't even have spare rooms. If there's a problem with her room, your husband must fix it so she's comfortable, but she cannot take over your room. Your room is private and off limits. Honestly, I'd move my stuff into the spare room and her stuff into her husband's bedroom. Then if he wants to share a bed with his mother, he can share a bed with his mother. Your husband is not only behaving destructively by refusing to support you and creating unnecessary drama, he's not speaking to you like he's in high school. He's being very immature. I don't lightly recommend counseling because it's expensive and hard to find a good counselor, but he won't listen to you. So I think you need it at this point. Maybe a third party can get through to him. What he's doing is damaging your relationship. OP's husband? This is my house? This stood out to me too as a bad sign. He doesn't see the OP as having any status in her own house. I try not to tell people to dump the person automatically, but I have a nagging feeling that that's what the OP should do to save herself a lot of drama. OMG, as someone with an idiot for a mother-in-law myself, I spent your entire post cringing and shouting from my side of the laptop screen. Boot his mom out of your house and send your hubby with her if they both keep prioritizing someone who pays zero bills comfort over yours, the one who owns the home. My 39 female tween daughter just had a birthday last week. My sister's 36, daughter Sophie, 1 year younger. My daughter had 2 parties, one held at a local skating rink and the other at our house afterward, where she and 7 other girls would be having a sleepover. Essentially, all the boys went home and the girls stayed after. My sister begged me to invite my niece, stating that she was bullied and never gets invited to parties. While my daughter doesn't dislike my niece, they're also not very close. My daughter sometimes says my niece is odd and annoying, and I can understand why. She tends to act strangely in social situations, has specific obsessions, and is overweight. The last bit is not her fault, but my sister and I hound her for it. I decided she deserved a break, and I believe her when she says her daughter doesn't get invited to places often. I told my daughter my niece was invited, to which she begged me not to let her spend the night. I decided this was a good compromise and didn't even mention the sleepover to my sister. So even if she tried to force her daughter into the party, she would have nothing with her, no clothes, no toothbrush. The day of the party arrives and the kids have a blast. Sister and I got along pretty well, and she got my daughter a lovely gift. The kids all played nicely, despite my niece being overbearing with the other children. When everything was all wrapped up, I stood up and thanked all the parents for coming, but said our time was up, and it was time for the boys to go home and the girls to follow us back for the slumber party. My niece went up to my sister, who seemed concerned about something, probably that they had nothing to take with them. I assumed my sister would tell her that they were heading home. I had my daughter say bye to her cousin and my sister. My sister looked at me confused and asked, "Is Sophie not coming to your house?" I guess I rubbed it the wrong way because I chuckled a bit and said, "Oh no, it's just her and her girlfriends." She made a face and my niece started tearing up a bit and clung to my sister, but I stood my ground because it's what my daughter wanted. My sister left with her begrudgingly and told me she would text me later. Our mom came up and asked me what her problem was, and when I explained, she gave me a dirty look and said, "That's not a good lesson for my daughter to learn. You should have let her stay." She said goodbye to my daughter and left. My sister sent me a long text about how I made her daughter feel, saying that I allowed her to feel left out despite forcing my daughter to invite her. My sister and mom will not speak to me, saying that I took part in ostracizing my sister's daughter. But am I really the idiot? So her mother and her aunts hound a girl about being overweight, which means at least 3 adults are bullying her. Yeah, I'm sure that helps her be less socially awkward. You are the idiot for justifying excluding a fat autistic girl for being fat and autistic. Really not a great thing to teach kids. I don't think anyone should have to invite anyone they don't want to, but you come off as an idiot. You are the idiot, not for not inviting your niece to the sleepover, but for how you handled it. You humiliated that little girl in front of everyone. You made it very clear that she wasn't your daughter's friend and that she was unwanted. That kind of thing sticks with children their whole lives. You're quite a mean person. Hope you're pleased with how you broke that little girl's heart. After all the other girls who were invited were sleeping over. You made it a point to announce that it was time for the boys to leave, and it was clear by your actions that your niece was the only girl who wasn't invited to stay over. That's a very crappy thing for an aunt to do, making her niece feel excluded and practically rubbing her face in it. I'm a mother of twins, 19 female. Their dad and I split up 6 years ago, and I'm now married to my husband, Kevin. Problem is, Kevin thinks that my girls are not disciplined, as they don't follow everything he tells them because they don't see him as their father. We've already talked about it. Especially the parts where he expects them to dress how he wants them to and behave how he wants them to. He even called them weirdos, but that's how teenagers are, and it's not a new thing. Anyways, I told him he needed to loosen up a little and lessen his expectations of them, but I get it's hard to do, given he was brought up in a conservative household with a hardcore Christian family. Last week, he started a fight after seeing one of the girls' hairstyles and said that she looked trashy. Because of this, we had to cancel our trip to the mall because he refused to drive us. A couple of days ago, we wanted to go out to dinner. I intended to get off work at 6, but had some stuff to do. My husband and I agreed that he'd take the girls and go to the restaurant and wait for me there. He called me before they left the house to complain about the girls' clothes. The girls sent me pics, and I thought nothing was wrong with their outfits and told him to drop it and go. He said fine, then muttered something about me enabling them, then hung up. While I was still at work, I got a call from one of the girls telling me their stepdad had them stand and wait outside the restaurant because he didn't want to be seen with them dressed like that. I was stunned. I rushed to the restaurant and found them near the car. They explained he told them to wait in the car till he told them to come in, basically wait for me. They started crying. I had them get in my car, then went inside the restaurant and found him on his phone. I went off on him and told him he should be ashamed of himself for treating my daughters like if there was something to be ashamed of. He tried backpedaling, saying it wasn't like that, but I interrupted him and then walked out after canceling dinner. We went home and he came back hours later trying to argue that I can't blame him for disapproving of the girls' recklessness and that he tried communicating, but I shut him down and treated him as less than a parent when he just wants what's best for them. He doesn't speak to me or the girls anymore. You are the idiot for marrying someone who treats your daughters like this. Of course they don't see him as a dad. They're adults, and he hasn't even been around for 6 years. He cannot just have expected to marry you and suddenly gain 2 obedient robots. That isn't how it works. Your choice, but if you let this continue, your girls won't stick around for that any longer than they need to. How the heck was he able to cancel a trip to the mall because he refused to drive? OP clearly can drive and has a car based on the post. So did she seriously agree to cancel the trip to appease him? That would be utterly bananas. Don't be so desperate for a relationship that you'll tolerate your kids being treated like crap. Cut this controlling dude out of all of your lives. You realize that his real issue is that he sees 2 attractive young women and is attracted. His knee-jerk reaction is to control them and their bodies to make himself more comfortable. The lack of respect here for you, your daughters, and your family speaks volumes. It's time for this man to be an ex-husband. Totally agree that he's attracted to them. Double yuck. You are the idiot because you don't prioritize your daughters and their safety, and for what you've already passively allowed, because you certainly haven't been doing enough to protect them so far. Me, 25 female, and my family, parents and siblings, have lived in Japan for 8 years. I was born there. My mom would make curry for the family whenever it was colder weather. This tradition continues till this day, in another country. If it's raining or cold, my mom will call for lunch or dinner at her house on the weekend because it's her curry day. And this is sacred to my mother. She even goes to the center to buy curry imported from Japan for this. My girlfriend, Camille, 26, has been with me for 7 years. Due to past disagreements, Camille and my mother don't have the best relationship. They manage to stay in the same room without fighting, but they keep nagging each other. Camille participates in the curry days and has even helped prepare. And some bad moments are going on because Camille keeps making suggestions for my mom's curry, and Mom, doesn't want to know, but I already told Camille to stop. Recently, Camille has been bringing up that she wants to make dinner and call my whole family. I agreed until I knew what food she intended to make. She wanted to buy curry imported from Japan to make her own curry day tradition. I made it very clear that maybe this wasn't the best idea because it's a tradition in my family and my mother's curry day is a very important thing for her. The day to see her children and grandchildren all together. It would also generate unnecessary conflict since there were thousands of other dishes that Camille could choose from. Instead, she decided to make something extremely special to my mother, giving an idea, even if not intentionally, that she would want to compete with my mother. Camille got mad that my mom didn't own the dish and that she could create her tradition without having to ask my mom's permission to make a dish that wasn't hers. I said I understood, but I asked her if this was a battle she wanted to have with my mother and create an easily manageable discomfort that can be solved by choosing any other dish in the world. She's pretty upset with me, which I understand, but honestly, I just want peace. And I am basing this on my mother's reaction, as she was already extremely upset when a sister-in-law decided to make this dinner for my brother and the children years ago. My mom doesn't care about many things, but curry day is important to her. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Even though, yes, technically she can cook whatever she wants. Being right doesn't always mean that you're not an idiot. I think it's pretty clear she's doing it on purpose. If she really wanted to start her own tradition, she wouldn't pick a dish that already has one. Camille is very clearly trying to get a rise out of your mom. It would be one thing to make the curry the way she wanted for just the two of you, but to constantly nag your mom about changing the recipe and then usurp her tradition and serve her steaming pile of in your face in front of the whole family is completely different. She knows what she's doing and that it'll cause friction with your mother and people discussing whose curry is better. This sounds like a very yummy problem. She clearly wants to one-up your mom's curry though. However, your mom doesn't own the dish, and being, quote, extremely upset when someone else in the family cooks curry is beyond reasonable. I mean, is anyone allowed to cook curry ever? Or do they have to wait until your mom makes it if they want to have some? It won't be yummy when OP finds himself between these two women. Again, that gets old. It's still weird as heck that OP's mom got mad at a sister-in-law for making curry for sister-in-law's husband and children though. Like, what? Why would you be the only person in an entire extended family that's allowed to make curry? I mean, if I were the girlfriend and inviting the entire family over for dinner, I would choose something besides curry since his mom is so odd about it, but it's still strange that she thinks it's some mortal sin to make a curry. I, 41 male, and my wife, 38, have 3 kids, toddler, pre-tween, and tween. We also have a nephew, 20, on my side, and a few nieces and nephews on her side. Every summer we go on a wilderness adventure, but 4 years ago, we were a bit worried about being overwhelmed with a newborn and 2 other kids. I asked my nephew, then 16, if he would like to come on vacation with us. The deal would be that my wife and I would pay for everything, and he babysits the older kids when they want to do an activity, but we need to chill with the baby. Nephew agreed, and the trip was a smashing success. We were so happy with how things turned out that we repeated the arrangement every following year. Having an extra set of hands made our vacations more of a vacation. My wife's oldest niece is a teenager, and her mom expected us to bring her on our vacation, but we didn't. Our niece is a great kid, but doesn't have a driver's license yet, isn't good with kids, and isn't much interested in physical activity. I'm sure she would have fun looking at the beautiful scenery and swimming in the springs, but her presence wouldn't decrease our workload and would have significantly increased the cost of our vacation. Not to mention, it would set an unaffordable precedent for our other nieces and nephews. We returned yesterday, and my sister-in-law has made some passive-aggressive posts on social media. Even my mother-in-law, with whom I have a great relationship, said she's disappointed that I didn't think about my niece's feelings. I do care about my niece, and I would have taken her if it wasn't so expensive, but I don't feel like we were obligated to take her. Am I the idiot? Let's reframe this. You hired your nephew to be a nanny on your vacation because he was a good fit and super qualified. Your niece isn't qualified, so you don't owe anyone a free vacation. Not the idiot. Perfectly said. Also, you can't expect someone to take your child on vacation for free. If anything, the niece's parents should have offered to pay for her. But even then, OP is in the right to say no. It's funny how often others seem to so freely want to spend money that doesn't belong to them. You are the idiot. You've been taking your nephew for 3 or 4 years now, and I'm sure your niece has said something about it. What have you and her mom been telling her about why she hasn't been going? Did you lead her on in any way when she was younger? Or did she just make the assumption that she was going when she was old enough? Sister-in-law made up a narrative in her head. If your niece did go and hated the trip, guess who would be bad-mouthing you all over social media? Explain to them your nephew's with you because he has a job that he's great at, and you're going to employ him until he's not interested anymore, at which point you probably won't need the help anymore.